Tonight, the emotional moment 19 months in the making. Sometimes a hug says it all. 21-year-old American-Israeli Idan Alexander, released by Hamas, reunited with his family 584 days after being kidnapped during the horrific attack on October 7th. Here in the U.S., the Diddy trial is officially underway. What to expect in the trial as his ex-girlfriend, seen on hotel surveillance being kicked and dragged by combs, is expected to be among the first witnesses to take the stand. The major deal between U.S. and China, a tariff rollback for 90 days, sending stocks surging. Is there hope beyond this rollback? And what will the impacts be right now for small business owners and your wallet? A $400 million gift? The outrage after John Carl broke the story that the president says he's prepared to accept a luxury Boeing 747 known as a Flying Palace to serve as Air Force One from Qatar before becoming part of the Trump library after he leaves office. The new details, we're learning about that Newark nightmare, the screens going dark again. How much could this affect summer travel everywhere? Tonight, the other country proudly calling the American Pope one of their own.
Y es lo que comía el Papa.
Sí.
Su
Es
plato
uno de los
favorito.
platos favoritos que comía el Papa.
Ajá.
And Fight or Flight, the star of a new dramatic movie set on an airplane, is here. The hesitation he had about even taking the role in the first place.
Were you excited to do it?
Very excited, yeah. I mean, again, like to be able to test myself at the age, in my mid-40s, to see if I could keep up with all these amazing stunt guys.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thank you so much for streaming with us. We begin tonight with emotion that is so raw, so pure and universal, it needs no translation. A hug literally felt around the world, nearly 600 days in the making. Israeli-American Idan Alexander is with his family now. That's the moment right there. His mother waited 19 months for. Her son was serving in the Israeli military when he was taken captive during the October 7th attack. And this is the moment minutes before when the Red Cross delivered Idan from Gaza and he set foot back in Israel for the first time. Idan was the last living American hostage held captive by Hamas in Gaza. The dual citizen grew up in New Jersey, and back home in Tenafly, New Jersey, hundreds gathered to watch the moment, his extended family cheering and clapping. There was also applause in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square, where families of other hostages waited for the news. How did this come to fruition, and what comes next for Idan? We'll hear from the Red Cross in a moment, but first, our Tom Sufi Burge leads us off tonight from Tel Aviv.
Tonight, the emotional moment of pure joy. Idan Alexander reunited with his family, the last living American hostage held by Hamas, finally free. After 584 days of agony, Idan back in the arms of his mother and father. The 21-year-old spending 2 of his birthdays in captivity, hugging his sister and younger brother, amazed at how much he's grown. Then embracing his grandmother and friends. Earlier, Idan seen here surrounded by Hamas gunmen before he was handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza. The IDF sharing this video of the moment he set foot back on Israeli soil.
Oh my God, Idan! Idan!
And just after his release, his mother Yael speaking to her son by phone for the first time in 19 months.
They just released a photo of you. You look unbelievable. Wow. You look beautiful. I love you so much.
Idan was raised in Tenafly, New Jersey. He joined the Israeli military right out of high school and at just 19 years old was kidnapped by Hamas during the October 7th massacre. Today, scenes of celebration in his hometown. Hundreds watching it live on a giant screen. Tonight, the White House posting this image of Idan holding a sign thanking President Trump.
Just matters that he is back home safely at this point. Tom joins us now from Tel Aviv. Tom, we know Idan Alexander's family is extremely grateful. That goes without saying. But what have we heard from them so far?
Linsey, they are over the moon and they are full of praise for President Trump and his entire team for bringing Idan back to Israel. President Trump just departing on his first foreign trip to the Middle East. He's visiting Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, but not Israel. But tonight, the president's saying he wants more hostages released in a sign of difference of opinion with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is still committed to not ending the war in Gaza. Linsey, there are 58 hostages still being held in the Gaza Strip. Linsey?
Tom Sufi-Burge for us from Tel Aviv. Tom, thank you. Let's get right to Fabrizio Carboni from the International Committee of the Red Cross. He's head of the regional delegation to the U.S. and Canada. Fabrizio, thank you so much for joining us. Can you share a little bit with us about Idon Alexander's condition after 19 months in captivity at the hands of Hamas?
It's difficult for me to comment on his condition because he was just released a couple of hours ago. I know that my colleague took great care of him, and then he was directly transferred to the Israeli authorities. And here you see the images. I think we all know how difficult and painful it was, and to see these images of him reunited with his family, it's yeah, that's an image we want to see more often for also all the hostages who are still in Gaza.
Right, just so joyful after so much heartbreak. Just peel back the curtain for us as far as who contacted the Red Cross about Idon's possible release, and what were you told?
Look, it goes quite fast. I mean, the authorities contacted us on all sides, Hamas, the Israeli authority, also the American negotiator, asking us to get ready. It went really fast. I mean, the fact that we are used to deal with the releases in extremely challenging security situation, the fact that our staff is working in Gaza, present there, allowed us to react very, very quickly. It was tense, like always, but I would say compared to previous releases, it went smoothly.
And you talk about previous releases. It feels like this one was different, the handoff at least. No stage, fewer Palestinian people in the vicinity, fewer members of Hamas as well. Why the difference here?
I think we also made clear that we could not repeat the previous experiences. Obviously, it's not just our decision as ICRC, because you know that those releases are, the result of very long and painful and difficult negotiation, and so sometimes you need to find the right balance between, having hostages releases and tolerate what is intolerable. This time, I think we collectively, the negotiator and the ICRC, managed to have conditions which were, I would say, a bit more respectful of this tragic situation.
Now, Hamas still holds at least 20 living hostages and the bodies of some 40 others, including several Americans. Until a broader truce can be reached, what role does the Red Cross play to help ensure that the living hostages are treated humanely?
Look, I think now after 2 years, it's no secret that we have no access. Unfortunately, this humanitarian situation is not treated as a humanitarian situation, but as a political one, as a military one. We regret this. We've been very clear on the fact that hostages should be released, by the way, even without negotiation, because it's illegal. We've asked repeatedly to have access, but the current political and military situation, unfortunately, undermine our humanitarian case. I also would like to stress that we don't visit the Palestinian detainees held in Israel. So we regret this. Again, humanitarian values and action are politicized, and it's very unfortunate.
So we know that the Red Cross is on the ground in Gaza. What's the aid situation currently, especially regarding the food supply?
Look, it goes way beyond the food supply. It's drugs. We run an hospital in Gaza today. We're running low in terms of medical supply. It's a dramatic situation. We regret that humanitarian access humanitarian assistance is not flowing. After almost 2 years of violence and conflict, with the level of destruction which affected the Gaza Strip, it's really dramatic. Essential infrastructure collapse, water, sewage system, health, food is on very, very, very short supply.
Fabrizio Carboni from the International Committee of the Red Cross, we so appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Testimony is now underway in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Jurors viewed video today obtained by CNN that shows Combs chasing his then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura at a hotel, knocking her down and kicking her. The court also heard testimony that some may find disturbing. Combs denies all allegations. Brian Buckmeyer is standing by with legal analysis. But first, here's our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky.
Right from the start of his racketeering and sex trafficking trial, Sean Combs was portrayed as a Jekyll and Hyde. To the public, prosecutors said he was Puff Daddy or Diddy, a cultural icon, a businessman larger than life. But they said there was another side to him, describing how Combs allegedly used lies, drugs, threats, and violence to threaten and coerce women to have sex with him in front of male escorts, and how these sex performances, fueled by ecstasy and other drugs that Combs called freak-offs, could last for days. And today, the jury of 8 men and 4 women saw a video like this one, showing Combs chasing then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura down a hotel hallway, knocking her to the floor and stomping on her. Prosecutors say it's what happened after Ventura tried to escape one of the sex performances. The defense claiming the video shows a fight over a cell phone. The first witness, Israel Flores, an LAPD officer who was working security at the hotel that night, said he responded to a call of a woman in distress. The officer testifying Combs gave him a devilish stare and tried to bribe him with a sack of money, saying, "Here, take care of this for me. Don't tell anyone." He says he refused the cash. A male escort, Daniel Phillip, testified he was paid to have sex with Cassie Ventura several times in front of Combs, and claiming he saw Combs get violent towards Ventura. "It came out of nowhere," he told the jury. "I was terrified." Even his own lawyers acknowledge Combs was violent, but arguing that does not make him a sex trafficker or part of a racketeering conspiracy. And the defense describing the freak-offs as consensual threesomes by a celebrity who led a swingers lifestyle.
Aaron Katersky joins us now. Aaron, should we expect Cassie to testify?
Oh, absolutely, Linsey. She's probably the star witness of this trial, and we expect her to be on the witness stand as soon as tomorrow morning. And the first 2 witnesses really set her up because both of them said they witnessed violence on the part of Sean Combs toward Cassie Ventura. She can expand on that and tell the jury what happened to her and why, according to federal prosecutors, it was more than just domestic violence. It was true coercion into sex acts. That's going to be key for prosecutors to prove their case.
And how long do we expect this trial to last?
This could go all the way into the summer. The jurors have been told to expect to be here through at least July 4th. We'll see if it actually goes that long, but there are several other alleged victims who are expected to testify after Cassie, and her testimony could take all week. And the defense says they do have a case to make, that Sean Combs may have been a domestic abuser, but not a sex trafficker or anyone involved in a RICO conspiracy.
Aaron Katersky for us. Thanks so much, Aaron. Now let's bring in ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, who's also covering the case for us from inside the court. So, Brian, a lot to unpack here. Let's just start with opening statements as far as what struck you today, and let's begin with prosecution.
So for the prosecution, I think they did a very good job. It's just under an hour, so you were really able to lock in and not get lost. But weaving in the facts of the case, starting out with specific incidences where Sean Combs is alleged to have used force to try to coerce individuals into these elaborate freak-offs, purchasing or at least indirectly purchasing individuals who would transport or at least cross over state lines for the purpose of engaging in prostitution, and laying out how Sean Combs' inner circle helped fuel his every desire, one of them being these freak-offs. For the defense, I think it was very interesting because they walked in saying, you know what? He's a domestic abuser. He's a violent individual. One of the really strong points I think that Tenny Garagos had was saying that there are some things that are indefensible about Sean Combs, but what he's being accused of, he did not do. There's abuse, and there's trafficking. He did one, not the other.
What do you think of that strategy? Could it potentially backfire in the eyes of the jury if you have them saying, oh, even his own defense attorney is saying he's violent, he has a temper, he has a history of domestic abuse?
I think it could backfire, absolutely. There are some things that you're conceding there that you might not like, but I think overall it's much better because it's about credibility. If you walked into that courtroom and said, it's all a lie, none of it's true, and then one of the first things that the government does is play that video of Cassie and Sean Combs that we've all seen now, there's nothing the defense could say that the jury would believe them in. But I think making the distinction of, and I think they said it as well, if this was a domestic violence case, we would not be here. I think insinuating there'd probably be a plea or something to that effect. But he draws the line of, I was a bad person, I did bad things, I was in a relationship, I used force against women that I should never have, but I did not traffic this person. I think it garners more credibility going that way.
So let's look forward to then the Cassie testimony. It seems that she is the prosecution's star witness. Do you think that her testimony is make or break for the prosecution?
I think at least for the allegations that involve her, the sex trafficking and many of the aspects of the racketeering, absolutely. Because if you're looking at this as the defense is trying to position it as, are these isolated incidences of domestic abuse and not the use of force, fraud, or coercion to try to manipulate or compel Cassie or the other alleged victim in this case that is named by Jane, we believe that to be a pseudonym. Is this, as the defense is arguing, an issue of love, jealousy, infidelity, and money? Or is it, as the government and Cassie has said in her civil lawsuit, that she was being compelled, coerced, and forced into these freak-offs that she did not want to participate in through these drug-filled escapades?
What do you think is the biggest challenge for the prosecution to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt?
I think the biggest thing for them is trying to explain to the jury why at one point in time, and they touched on it a little bit in the opening statements, why at one point in time Cassie might have been involved in this relationship of her own consent. But over time, that changed. Over time, this became not something where she was in love with an individual and wanted to provide those things, these elaborate freak-offs that might just be a little different than what more people might think are acceptable, as the defense would argue. And also even the other alleged victim, Jane, that this wasn't about jealousy. This wasn't about trying to garner favor with Sean Combs, this powerful individual, but instead this was sex trafficking. And when you look at some of the jurors, at least 5 of them are from the ages, I believe, of 67 or above. I think the difference of age and how people conceive or perceive consent may be something that they're going to have to overcome in this case of saying, this isn't what we used to think non-consent was. This is actual trafficking.
So you think the age may play a factor here? That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a jury of 8 men and 4 women. I think that's an aspect of it well, but I think for me, I'm locking in on that age and how people of different age perceive consent.
And one of the jurors, 74, you don't even have to serve once you're 70. So interesting that he's saying, yeah, voluntarily, I'll sit here. Yeah. All right, Brian Buckmeyer, our thanks to you as always. A truce between the Trump administration and China, at least for now. The president and China agreed to temporarily reduce tariffs. The news sent stocks soaring, with the Dow gaining more than 1,100 points. The S&P 500 went up 184 points, and the NASDAQ gained 4%. ABC's Rachel Scott has the latest.
1 month after he launched a trade war with China that economists warn could lead to soaring inflation and empty store shelves, tonight President Trump announcing a temporary truce. China and the U.S. agreeing to draw down their tariffs for 90 days to allow time to negotiate a trade deal.
I think it's going to be fantastic for China. I think it's going to be fantastic for us. And I think it's going to be great for unification and peace.
Trump now slashing his tariffs on Chinese goods coming into the U.S. from a staggering 145% to 30%. China lowering their retaliatory tariffs on American products from 125% to 10%. It's quite an about-face from just last week when President Trump insisted he would not lower tariffs to jumpstart talks.
Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No.
But Wall Street and business owners have warned the trade war was unsustainable. Last week, cargo shipments into the port of Los Angeles down 32%. American families already starting to feel the pinch. Today, the Dow surging more than 1,100 points on news of the trade truce. But tonight, the big question: what happens if the U.S. and China don't cut a deal by the end of the 90-day pause?
If a longer-term deal is not reached with China at the end of these 90 days, can the American people expect those tariffs to go back up to 145%?
No, but they would go up substantially higher. I think you will have a deal, however.
Rachel Scott joins us now. Rachel, we know that President Trump has just signed an executive order dealing with drug prices. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the president signing this executive order today. He's demanding pharmaceutical companies lower the price of prescription drugs, and he's giving them 30 days to do that. But the big question here, what power does the president have to actually enforce that? Will these pharmaceutical companies agree to it? And like all executive orders, they can be very thin. Most of the weight comes from passing laws in Congress, Linsey.
Okay, so still to be determined in some of that. Okay, Rachel, our thanks to you as always. There is an uproar tonight over the plan for the government of Qatar to donate a luxury 747 jumbo jet to be used as Air Force One until 2028. Then it would be decommissioned and donated to the Trump Library, all at taxpayer expense. That plan is raising serious legal and security questions, but President Trump says only a stupid person would turn the offer down. ABC's chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl reports from the White House.
President Trump today defended the $400 million gift he wants to accept from the government of Qatar, a massive 747-8 luxury jet that's been called a flying palace.
I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much.
The jet, which is bigger and more luxurious than Air Force One, would almost certainly be the most expensive gift ever from a foreign power. It has 2 fully furnished floors, plush carpet, leather couches, and 2 bedrooms. Under the entirely unprecedented arrangement, the Qatari royal family would give the plane to the Pentagon to be used as Air Force One. But shortly before Trump leaves office, ownership would transfer to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation.
I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane.
Democrats say accepting the Qatari jet would be clearly illegal, violating the Constitution's ban on gifts from foreign heads of state.
His shameless self-enrichment is without equal in American history.
Hillary Clinton pointed to the president's comments that children might have to settle for just 2 dolls because of the impact of his tariffs. Clinton posting, "So American children should make do with 2 dolls, while Donald Trump gets a free sky palace from the Qatari government." Okay. And the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Jack Reed, flagged alarming national security concerns, warning using the Qatari jet as the new Air Force One would, quote, pose immense counterintelligence risks by granting a foreign nation potential access to sensitive systems and communications. Trump today angrily dismissed the criticism.
They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us, I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much.
Attorney General Pam Bondi argues the arrangement with Qatar is legal, insisting the plane is not a bribe because the Qatari royal family is getting nothing in return. Our Rachel Scott asked Trump today if he would continue to use the jet himself once he leaves office and its ownership transfers to his presidential library.
Do you plan to use the plane after you leave office?
No, I don't. No, it would go directly to the library after I leave office. I wouldn't be using it. No.
Our thanks to John Karl. Next tonight, a flight carrying 59 white Afrikaners from South Africa landed in Washington, D.C. today. The Afrikaners were the white minority group in South Africa that ruled during apartheid. The group was granted refugee status from the Trump administration, as the Trump administration has accused South Africa's government of racially discriminating against them. The South African government has denied this. Now, this all comes as the administration as a whole has essentially halted all other refugee admissions. The Episcopal Church was ordered by the government to help resettle the Afrikaners, but today the church terminated its relationship with the federal government, citing a moral opposition to resettling the white Afrikaners. Joining us now is the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, Bishop Sean Rowe. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Of course, this was a 4 decades old relationship across many administrations that was ended abruptly today. Why did the classification of these immigrants as refugees cross a moral line?
Well, the reality is we can't be ourselves in the Episcopal Church and take the step of resettling white Afrikaners from South Africa. Our church has a long commitment to racial justice and reconciliation, and we have historic ties with the Anglican Church of South Africa. Desmond Tutu is a part of, been a partner was a partner in this work for us. So we're just not able to take this step. It's not in line with anything that we're about, and it also saddens us to see that other refugees who are being denied entrance to the United States are people, brave people who've worked alongside of our military in Iraq and Afghanistan, now face danger, have been in camps for a long time and aren't being allowed in. And so this is just, the program no longer aligns with where we are as a church and what we're about.
The Episcopal Church has a long history of advocating against apartheid in South Africa, as you mentioned, and has worked extensively with the late Desmond Tutu's organization. How are people in South Africa reacting to these refugees being allowed into the United States?
Well, I only know what the official spokespeople for the South African government have said, which is they don't understand why this is happening, and it's causing significant diplomatic relations. But that's not my area of focus. Really, it has just been saying that this is not where our church is. This is not. We're not going to participate in this. We can't do this.
If refugees are in fact allowed in, are you worried about them not getting the help that they need if programs like yours don't exist? And I'm talking about refugees overall.
Well, refugees overall, I mean, the president has essentially shut the program down. Virtually no refugees have been admitted to the United States since January. So this program has largely been shut down and so people who have been vetted, people who are ready to come to this country have been denied access. So I have no idea what this administration does next or whether they continue to admit refugees or not. But I don't know what would be asked of us next. Who else would we be asked to resettle? So this just isn't a place we can go with.
And what's next for you all at the Episcopal Church?
Well, we'll continue our work advocating for immigration. We're going to pivot our work to our migrant work that has been a part of our history for more than 150 years. We're sorry to end this relationship with the federal government, and this is what we feel like is the stand that we have to take. There comes a point when it crosses a line, and we feel like with this particular situation of admitting Afrikaners as refugees that really meet no definition of a refugee. But the president is entitled to do it his way, but we're gonna draw the line here.
Bishop Sean Rowe, we thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Today, the UN Aviation Council ruled that Russia was responsible for the downing of a Malaysian airliner over Ukraine that killed all 298 passengers and crew. Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 departed from Amsterdam for Kuala Lumpur in 2014 and was shot down over eastern Ukraine. The passengers killed included Dutch and Australian citizens, prompting both countries to bring the case against Russia to the Aviation Council in 2022. The Aviation Council lacks regulatory power, so it's not clear how and if Russia will be held accountable. From the Vatican tonight, Pope Leo XIV met with 3,000 journalists, including our own James Longman and Terry Moran. The Pope, well aware that ABC News interviewed his brothers, saying they were on TV more than he, the Pope, was. James reports from Vatican City tonight.
The remarkable opportunity tonight, Terry Moran and I among the lucky few to meet Pope Leo. He shook our hands in a room packed with thousands of journalists. He said, ABC News, you guys tracked down my brothers. They've been on TV more than me. Those brothers nearly as famous as Leo, older brother John, who he plays Wordle with, in the middle of an interview with the AP when the phone rings.
Oh, he's called for 2 hours already.
So why don't you answer your phone?
Well, first you need to know you're on the air right now. This has been going on since 11 o'clock this morning. This is the first time I'm hearing that this thing rang, and we are being filmed and recorded.
Right now?
Right this very minute.
Since that moment, it's been a whirlwind of firsts for the first American Pope. The white cassock giving this humble Chicagoan star power, introducing himself to the world's press today with a joke in English.
Good morning, and thank you for this wonderful reception. They say when they clap at the beginning, it doesn't matter much. If you're still awake at the end and you still want to applaud, thank you very much.
A much smaller crowd than the 100,000 people who came to see his first Sunday blessing from the balcony of St. Peter's.
Mai più la guerra.
No more war. His words echoed across the square to huge applause, saying the war in Gaza had hurt him deeply and that a just peace was needed in Ukraine.
Our thanks to James Longman. Coming up, a suspicious home explosion in New Jersey now being investigated as non-accidental. And in tonight's Prime Focus, we take you to Chiclayo, Peru. We visit the place where Pope Leo lived and the people he met along the way. Welcome back, everyone. While Pope Leo is from Chicago, tonight thousands of miles away, a different community is claiming the Pope as their own. Our Matt Rivers traveled to the fourth largest city in Peru, where the Pope spent the better part of 2 decades. What was his life like there, and how did he impact the tens of thousands who live there?
When the new Pope first spoke from that Vatican balcony, there was one place he referenced many people listening probably hadn't heard of before.
Y se me permiten también una palabra, un saludo a todos aquellos, y en modo particular a mi querida diócesis de Chiclayo en el Perú.
A message not so much for the world, but for the people of a city 6,600 miles away, Chiclayo, Peru. Peru's fourth largest city isn't famous. It lacks the sophistication of Lima or the tourists of Cusco. 3 flights later, and a quiet airport greets us on arrival as we set out to explore how this unlikely place helped shape a future pope. This bustling but impoverished city first welcomed Pope Leo, then just Robert to most, back in the 1980s. The young missionary, though, ended up staying on and off for more than 2 decades. Father Jorge Millán Cotrina knew that his close friend wouldn't forget where he comes from.
Lo dijo ayer, creo yo, en su mensaje cuando dijo estas palabras que la verdad que nos emocionó a todos. Lo vuelvo a ver en la repetición en los videos y me emociono hasta casi llorar, ¿no? Cuando dijo un saludo especial a mi querida diócesis de Chiclayo. No dijo a la diócesis de Chiclayo, no dijo a la diócesis donde yo estuve, no, a mi querida. Ahí me emocioné y dije, nos lleve en su corazón.
It's clear on the streets of Chiclayo that this city claims the mild-mannered Midwesterner as their own. Newspapers call him the native pope. This one says he's Peruvian and misses ceviche. The Pope ate here, this restaurant's sign out front says, so we stepped inside.
Gracias, muy amable.
Te presento un cabrito combinado. Se le dice cabrito combinado porque viene el arroz, el frijol bayo, que es muy agradable, y el cabrito tierno. Es deshuesado, es un plato tradicional de la ciudad de Chiclayo.
Y es lo que comía el Papa.
Sí.
Su plato favorito.
Es uno de los platos favoritos que comía el Papa.
Ajá.
What is clear is they love him, but to find out why, we ventured on. If you want to quickly get some answers about a new place, I learned a long time ago to get to a local market. In this case, we're told grab a moto taxi to beat the traffic. Along the way, it's not hard to tell that this city is working class. No fancy shopping districts, lots of unpaved roads, average income well under $10,000 a year. But as we see in the market, this city is also known for its openness and hospitality. So it takes just a minute to meet Yvonne, who immediately tells us why this pope is so beloved.
Porque él ha vivido acá. Él ha estado acá, muchos años ha estado acá en Chiclayo. Nosotras, la ciudad de la amistad, se siente alegre porque ese hombre estuvo aquí, comió con nosotros. Vivió carencias, supo que era hambre, dio de comer al que lo necesitó.
Hay otros misionarios que vienen y salen,
claro,
pero él se quedaba.
Él se quedaba, él convivía, él le gustaba dar, era dadivoso, ayudaba al prójimo.
¿Tiene el respeto de la gente aquí?
Claro, claro, mucho respeto, mucho respeto.
They point to example after example. The community kitchens he helped set up, the shelters, both for the poor and for Venezuelan migrants, he helped build. Walking the empty streets of a pandemic-riddled Peru, masked, offering prayers and hope to remind people they were not alone. The man even helped procure oxygen supplies when local health systems faltered. He showed up at confirmations and birthdays and anniversaries. At this church, a half hour outside the city, the Pope once gave Mass, and then took several items all the way to the Vatican to get blessed by Pope Francis. Parishioners like Marta will never forget it, stunned to learn he'd become the Pope.
No podías creerlo.
Cuando dijeron su nombre, dijeron, ¿eres Papa? Yo grité, salté y lloré en mi casa.
Mi hermana me miraba y yo seguía llorando y no sabía a quién llamar y a quién decirle. Nuestro obispo es el Papa.
If the city has a modern patron saint, safe to say he now goes by Pope Leo. So perhaps the scenes we saw over the weekend were no surprise. Thousands gathering for a special mass in honor of the new pope. The bishop who replaced him giving a soaring sermon.
El Papa León XIV, nuestro amado obispo.
Answered by cheering crowds. More reminiscent of a soccer match than a Catholic mass. But that is the passion this new pope evokes here, a pope they truly call their own. The pope might have been born in the US, but ask any Chiclayano and they'll tell you he's Peruvian too.
They say he has it in his blood at this point. Our thanks to Matt Rivers. Coming up, agents swarmed this boat. We'll tell you how the encounter ended. And with summer travel season now just days away, what will the domino impacts be after the Newark nightmare? We take a look by the numbers. Welcome back, everyone. This weekend, Newark Liberty International Airport faced another technical problem that once again brought flights to a halt. It's yet another issue plaguing one of the busiest airports in the country in recent weeks, with technical problems, ongoing construction, and staffing shortages creating chaos. Secretary Sean Duffy today announced plans to investigate and fix the issues. He will also meet with airlines about reducing flights in and out of Newark. Let's take a look at airport's ongoing problems by the numbers. On Sunday, flights were grounded for 45 minutes because of an audio issue. It came days after a 90-second outage on Friday, where screens briefly went black and had to be booted back up, as well as a 60 to 90-second outage on April 28th. Meanwhile, flights today were delayed an average of 1 hour, 41 minutes because of staffing issues, according to an FAA advisory. The FAA also said that there had been 34 arrival cancellations per day on average at Newark since April 15th, with the average number of delayed arrivals per day ranging from 5 in the 7 a.m. hour to 16 between 7 and 11 p.m. As for ramping up staffing, officials today said it takes 2.5 years to train air traffic controllers on the airspace in Newark and New York. They're hoping to speed that process up. Still ahead tonight, the so-called junk fee rule is taking effect today, how it could change your purchase of concert tickets, hotel rooms, and more. And we get a preview of the action-packed Fight or Flight just released in theaters. We sit down with star Josh Hartnett when we come back. We have breaking news to report. The rapper Tory Lanez, who's serving a 10-year sentence for the 2020 shooting of Megan Thee Stallion, was stabbed 14 times this morning by another inmate at a California prison. An attorney representing Lanez says he remains hospitalized. His verified Instagram account added that both his lungs were collapsed by the stabbing, but he is now breathing on his own after being placed on a breathing apparatus. California Governor Gavin Newsom continues his crusade against homeless encampments. Surprise fees on your online purchases should soon become a thing of the past. And speaking of the past, the video games from the 80s and 90s just inducted into the Video Game Hall of Fame. These stories and more in tonight's rundown.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is continuing his battle against an issue plaguing the Golden State for years. Newsom's office drafted legislation that can be modified by cities and towns across California to ban certain homeless encampments that block public sidewalks or are a constant presence. The governor said the state is also making more than $3.3 billion available to expand housing and drug treatment programs for residents experiencing homelessness. The Coast Guard released dramatic video of the interception of a boat suspected of carrying illegal drugs off the coast of California in the eastern Pacific. The small boat had been under aerial surveillance before officers from the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Kimball raced towards it with guns drawn. Officers said the Kimball Group has recently seized over $200 million worth of illicit substances from their past few raids. A massive explosion and fire that killed 2 people and leveled a New Jersey home shortly after 2 in the morning on Sunday was not accidental, that according to authorities. The bodies of a man and a woman whose names have not yet been released were later recovered from the rubble. Neighbors who lived blocks from the explosion reported being rattled awake and said it sounded like a bomb went off. Multiple state authorities are now investigating the suspicious explosion. A Philadelphia rapper who adopted the moniker of the Voice of the Youth was shot and killed Sunday afternoon in Northeast Philadelphia. 30-year-old Kadir Johnson, known as LGP Qua, a rapper who spoke out about gun violence and police brutality, was shot multiple times according to authorities. No arrests have been made. Authorities for now are describing the scene as a robbery gone wrong. A rule against so-called junk fees approved by the Biden administration takes effect today. And already, Ticketmaster said they will start displaying upfront the full price customers will pay as they're shopping for tickets on their website. The new rule requires ticket sellers, hotel chains, and other consumer-facing companies to display any processing or additional fees well before a customer completes their purchase. The Video Hall of Fame announced its latest inductees, arcade classic Defender, the digital pet toy video game Tamagotchi, the 3D first-person shooter Quake, and the James Bond game GoldenEye 007 were all chosen for their influence on the future of video games. In fact, the computer code that ran the game Quake in 1996 continues to be used in some games nearly 30 years later.
Whether it's Oppenheimer or Black Hawk Down, actor Josh Hartnett often brings an unmistakable energy, intensity, and dash of humor to his films. His latest, Fight or Flight, just opened on Friday. In it, Hartnett plays an exiled mercenary given one last chance to redeem himself on an international flight during which he must track a high-value target while fending off assassins who want to kill them both. Our Phil Epoff sat down with Josh Hartnett.
What am I doing here, Catherine?
We're tracking a high-value target.
The ghost is a black hat terrorist.
You play this off-the-grid mercenary, Lucas Reyes, in Fight or Flight. It's an action movie, but it's a comedy.
Yes.
And it does both really well.
Thank you.
You've been in action movies before.
Yeah.
Was this any different for you?
Yeah, the last time I did my own stunts in a movie, I was 29. I was 44 when we shot this. There's a difference.
Physically.
There's a difference. Yeah. No, the recovery time, we didn't have time to recover in this because we shot it in 5 weeks, essentially. What we were hoping to do was just squeeze as much entertainment value out of this concept as possible, not take ourselves too seriously, wanted the character to be always on the back foot. You're not quite sure, sort of he's unreliable in a lot of different ways. A lot of things happen to him to make him even more unreliable, and then hopefully over the course of it, he'll succeed. But the conceit was that I was going to do my own stunts. That's the producers are the producers of John Wick, and so basically they said, well, if Keanu can do it, you can do it. I was like, okay, yeah, let's go for it.
Oh, yeah. As an actor, when you get that challenge, if Keanu can do it, then I have to. Were you excited to do it?
Very excited, yeah. I mean, again, like to be able to test myself at the age, in my mid-40s, to see if I could keep up with all these amazing stunt guys. And
how was it?
The choreography took a long time, but then when we shot it, we didn't have a lot of time, as I said. So we were basically doing one take of each angle, and then it was put together in a way you saw it. So you saw like long sequences all at once.
The comedy, how was adding that into this kind of intense fighting and the sort of gruesome way people die?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that is the funny part. Like, you can't take this seriously because these movies are always so over the top with the blood and the gore. And the comedy is, I think, situational comedy and physical comedy, a lot of physical comedy. I love that stuff.
Rough night?
Please open the door.
1 second!
You've said that you're always trying to do something outside of what people expect you to do.
Well, I knew that I was going to do this about the same time that I got the script for Oppenheimer. So when I got to the set and was talking to Killian or Robert or whatever about what they were going to go on to next, and they were like, how about you? And I was like, well, I'm going to do this crazy little action film. And they're like, you're going to do an action film? Like, And I was like, yeah, with my own stunts and stuff like that. And they're like, what? When is the last time you did that? It's like, I was in my 20s. And they're like, well, why would you do that to yourself at this age, you know? And I was like, because it's unexpected, because it's fun, and I think audiences get a real kick out of seeing actors do their own stuff. I always want to try something that I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be able to pull off, throw myself into it fully, and then hopefully be able to do it. And in this case, like I said, we had a great team sort of supporting me, really fantastic stunt team.
I've read about Anne Hathaway.
Oh yeah. We did a film together.
Yeah, tell me about that because that's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's called Verity. It was Colleen Hoover's first book. It was a self-published book. It's nothing like her other books. It's a very dark, twisted psychological thriller, sexy psychological thriller.
Okay.
And it's me and Annie and Dakota Johnson, who I'd never met before. I'd met Anne before. Annie, I don't know if you've met her.
I don't call her Annie.
This is the thing. She tells everyone, that's my name.
Annie?
Don't call me Anne. It makes her feel uncomfortable. So then you get used to it, and then I come on, I've been saying it, and I'm like, I sound like I'm trying really hard to like.
But she in fact did tell you to call her that.
I had to call her Annie. So
for the record. It's
anyway, Anne Hathaway. I worked with Anne Hathaway. She's awesome. Dakota's great, and we had a really fun time making it. Michael Showalter directed it, and it'll come out next year.
You mentioned Oppenheimer as a vital supporting role. This is a lead, you know, smashing right through the door role. Do you prefer one over the other, or do you see it just in the course of your body of work?
You know, I don't want to define myself as a specific type of actor because the whole point of my career, I think, from the very beginning was to try to broaden my ability, like the kind of scope of work that I could do. I don't want to be pigeonholed, so I think it's wonderful to be able to do one and then the other and then go back and do something else. To be able to kind of still be seen by great directors as a plausible actor for those roles, but then also be able to do this and then Trap and play roles that are so kind of absurd or very dark and then things that are very light. It's a lucky place to be as an actor. And I'm feeling even more lucky these days because the directors that are hiring me are directors that have a lot of clout. So the films are getting seen on a broader level. And that allows me to do bigger things and take experiments like this and release them in a broad way.
Our thanks to Phil Lipoff for that conversation. Fight or Flight, directed by James Madigan, is in theaters now. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you so much for streaming with us.